If all you ever see is someone else's best highlights, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that's what they want to show you. You don't see behind the scenes there. You jump to the place of comparing your behind the scenes life to that person's highlights and feel like crap because of it. Even the person posting that awesome filtered image has a behind the scenes and likely some of their own body image issues as well. But you don't see that, do you? Just know this, you're not alone. But you feel that way because very few people openly talk about their own struggles, and all you have to go off is others' highlight reels. No one is perfect, and we're all uniquely messed up in our own way. You can't compare yourself to Tina from The Office, who does a juice cleanse for 2 weeks and dropped 10 pounds. Because Tina has done that same cleanse 14 times and always gains the weight back, every single time. P.S. Tina, slide into the DMs for some real nutrition coaching, and we'll get you squared away. Just know you're not alone, even if it feels that way. Every one of us has our own struggles, and because you can't see them, doesn't mean they aren't there daily. Please keep this in mind next time you see something that makes you feel bad about yourself. It's really difficult to do the right thing for the person in the mirror if you only compare yourself to someone else's image. If you're like a lot of my other clients and struggle in the mindset department, shoot me a message and let's work through those thoughts and actions. And with that being read, I want to welcome you back to the 127 Fit podcast. Today's guest is a nutritional therapy practitioner and founder of Evolve Nutritional Therapy. Today's guest is Alex McMahon. Alex, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit podcast.
Thanks so much for having me on, man. I'm super excited to get started. I know that you and I were kind of riffing off air a little bit about our backgrounds and teaching and things like that. So first and foremost, thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely, Alex. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule today, and I know your story is going to resonate with a lot of my listeners. So, Alex, the first question I have for you today is, how do you start your day? And is there some sort of kind of morning routine or morning ritual that you follow most of the time?
Yeah, so every day I try to get up right around 5 a.m., usually like 4:35. And the very first thing that I do is I meditate. Many years ago, I had somebody who challenged me to meditate, and it was something that fundamentally changed my life. You know, it felt like one of the big things for me is that it turned the volume down on everything, where I went from being less reactive, not letting things affect me, to keeping more of a level head, and it allowed me to operate better throughout the day, and it allowed me to operate at what I feel like is a higher level. So the very first thing that I do is I meditate, then I go downstairs and drink some water, and when I do that, I usually take like fish oil, vitamin D, or whatever other supplements I'm going to take for the day, all legal. And then on top of that, I'll usually pop my headphones in and go for like a 20, maybe 30-minute walk. So the big thing for me is I'm up early, so I already feel like I'm winning there. Then I'm meditating, so I'm kind of setting my mind right. I'm getting some water in the system, so I'm rehydrating, and then a little bit of movement, and then always a big cup of coffee before I start the day.
Cool. Now I want to touch on the meditation
Yeah.
aspect of your morning routine, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use an app, or what does that meditation kind of look like for you, Alex?
Yeah, so I use Headspace,
Okay.
and when I've tried a bunch of different things. I tried Calm, I tried other things. I like the guided nature of Headspace because I feel like it does keep me pretty present, whereas other ones that I tried that were just like nature music or things like that, I honestly fall asleep.
Yep.
And so with Headspace, it allows me to just kind of stay present, stay awake, and kind of be with everything. And that's the one that I've just found is the best for me personally.
Cool. Now, with the water, because that's something that I do as part of my morning routine. For me, I add in some collagen and pink Himalayan sea salt. Do you just drink straight water, or do you put maybe some salt or something in there? Or?
No, I just do regular water.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll get up and I'll do like a carbonated, like sparkling water or something
cool.
like that.
Cool.
But just something to get water back in the system. I notice
sure.
that when I wake up, I feel pretty dehydrated.
Absolutely.
So I always want to put some fluids back in the system.
Okay, great. So next question as part of the warm-up, Alex, is do you have a favorite book personally, or a book that you gift often?
Probably the one that you and I were chatting about, Mindset by Carol Dweck, is one of my all-time favorite books. I just think that so much of what we do in our life is dictated by our mindset. And I think that the difference between people who have equal skills and people who are on a very even playing field is the mindset that they bring to the table. And the people who I have seen be successful, not just like in business, but in all facets of their life, the one thing that they always have in common is they just have a different mindset. And I think that when you can change how you think, you change the entire trajectory of your life. Awesome. And I love that book because what it does is it examines every facet of your life, where it's like business, relationships, sports, parenting. It goes through and it gives examples of all of them. But it also just gives these crazy, crazy examples. Like one of my favorite ones you may have heard in podcasts is like, there was an unsolvable math problem, and they were teaching it in this graduate school. And this kid shows up late, and everybody else in the classroom had heard the preconceived notion, this is an unsolvable math problem. He showed up late, he missed that part. So he thought that what was on the whiteboard was just math homework. So he goes home, works on it for a week, comes back and gives it to his professor. And his professor just gives him this blank look because he's like, that wasn't homework. That was an unsolvable math problem that he had just solved. And so the coolest thing is what was different, they all had the same knowledge base. They all had these, skills. But the difference was the mindset that he approached that problem with was just fundamentally different because he didn't hear it was an unsolvable math problem. And when they asked him and said, well, wasn't it really tough? He goes, he laughed and chuckled. He goes, I'm in graduate school for math. It's like, every math problem they give me is really hard. This was no different. I just kept working at it.
Beautiful, beautiful, man. Thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna have to. I know I've heard a lot about Carol Dweck, and she has multiple books out, doesn't she?
I think so. That's the only one that I've ever read, honestly.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that one out because I know listening to other podcasts, I've heard her name and that book specifically come up a lot. So I'm definitely gonna have to dig into that. So, is there a favorite quote or mantra that you live by or that has played a big role in your life?
Yeah, so there's a motivational speaker named Inky Johnson. And he says, can you stay committed to the process when the outcome directly in front of you isn't exactly what you want it to be? And I think that that's such an interesting thing to keep in front of our mind because we expect things to be immediate. We expect this immediate gratification for us to do, A, and then B is always going to be the result. But the reality is, you are going to have to stay committed to the process of whatever you want to get done when the result directly in front of you isn't what you want. And you may have to stay there for a period of time. But if you just stay committed to working on the things that you know that you have to get done, then eventually you're going to get to that outcome. But it may not be in the time frame that you've set for yourself. And for me, what that does is that mantra just brings me back to center. And what it does is it keeps me focused on the process of what I'm doing and less focused on the outcome. Because even for something like weight loss, with a lot of the clients that I work with, if they do the right things, their weight may not drop for a week or two.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that the process isn't working. It just means that we haven't seen the outcome that they want. Okay. But if they stay committed to that process, if they keep, eating the vegetables, eating enough protein, going out for their walks, doing all the things that I try to get them to do, then eventually the results will come. But it's not going to probably be in the time frame that they want it to be, because everybody wants to lose weight yesterday. We all want to be millionaires. We all want to have six-pack abs.
Right.
But it's like you have to kind of, for lack of better terms, kind of shovel some shit to make it happen. Mm-hmm. And so when you get comfortable and when you stay committed and you find a certain level of gratification in doing things, that is when the results become kind of secondary. You still want them, but it's like when you can stay committed to that process, that's where you start to experience a lot of the wins. And for me, that's been a really powerful mantra and quote for me, specifically inside of what I do, because sometimes within business and in running your own nutrition coaching business, you're going to have to honestly chip away at things for a long time before you get to where you want.
Right.
And that's really helped me to bring my mindset to a much more centered place and to stay committed to what I know is the right thing to be doing.
Awesome, man. All right, so last question in regards to the warm-up is, do you have, and if there's more than one, go ahead, please list them or name them, but do you have a favorite or most listened to podcast?
Yeah, so I really like the Joe Rogan Experience if I'm trying to just relax and have some fun. I'm also a huge fan of the Andy Frisella podcast, the MFCEO. I love Tom Bilyeu's Impact Theory. It's another really favorite one. There's one named Short Story Long by a guy named Chris, I think it's Pfaff, and he owns Young and Reckless clothing company. Let's see here. There's a ton of them, man, but those are probably the top ones that come to mind.
Now, has there been a favorite? Let's just stick to the Joe Rogan, MFCEO, and Tom Bilyeu podcast. Those three. Out of those three, has there been maybe a guest or two that you've really found a lot of value? And it doesn't have to pertain to nutrition or health or fitness, but out of those 3 podcasts, has there been a guest or two that you found a lot of value in kind of like their life or some of their philosophies?
Yeah, so for Tom Bilyeu, the most impactful one for me was Jason Maiden, and it's the ADD is a superpower. And it's just because his mindset's on another level. You know, This guy grew up in, impoverished Chicago, had all the cards stacked against him. But what he says in the podcast that I thought was really cool is he's like, I try to figure out all the ways that people can tell me no to something, and I remove those as an option. So that then the only option is yes. And he went on to essentially accomplish a bunch of different things in his life that people told him he wasn't going to be able to do, or cut the time frame in half, where he became the lead designer at Nike. Wow. Or took something like a maligned shoe that was going to be it was essentially going to be the barbecue shoe for dads, and made it one of the top grossing shoes for Nike. And so he just thinks in such a different manner and has accomplished so much in his life that I took a ton away from that. Probably one of the other ones on Tom Bilyeu's podcast is all of his AMAs, where he just goes through and answers questions. Okay. Because he gets questions from people in his community and goes through and just like kind of drops knowledge bombs for him, and I really appreciate him. One of the other ones that I've absolutely loved is not even necessarily a podcast, it's one of his keynotes. I think it's called 2017 Meltdown, and it is a 1.5-hour long keynote that he gives that I think is one of the most powerful things. He goes through and explains exactly how they built Quest, exactly how they won, and then exactly the big shifts in his life that have been so pivotal. And so I think that those, like the keynote Meltdown from 2017 and then Jason Maiden's on Impact Theory, are my top 2. Cool. The MF CEO, I can't even remember necessarily like the number, but he's like, essentially, one of the ones that he had with a guy named, what's his name, Charlie Jabley. It's this guy who's gotten like really popular on social media lately. It's like calls himself Charlie Rocket. Is one that's really just fundamental, because this guy goes through and talks about how he was a CEO for like 2 chains and was a multimillionaire, but wasn't happy and depressed. And so he essentially just gives up that lifestyle to go and chase his dream, which is to become, a Nike athlete and a motivational speaker. And it's like 300 pounds when he decided to do that. Wow. And so that was a really impactful one for me. And then there's another one where with Andy Frisell and the MFCEO, he's like, the belief comes before you start to get results, essentially. He's like, you know that you're going to have this impact. You know that you're going to be this person. He's like, but in the very beginning, that's all you have. He's like, you don't have results to show for it. You're not really getting anywhere. And so I can't remember exactly what episode it is or exactly what's happening, but that was an impactful thing for me to hear, because I'll be very honest and frank that like when you work for yourself, there's lots of ups and downs, man. Like you go from one day feeling like I'm on top of the world, like I'm crushing it, to like 30 minutes later being like, oh my God, why'd I do this? This is ridiculous. And like, so you go through this emotional roller coaster that causes like some depression and some anxiety and some like just crazy ups and downs that nobody ever really prepared you for. Right. And I feel like that saying in that specific part of the podcast like made me feel more normal. Cool. So like that's why that was impactful. With Joe Rogan, I would say his ones with Rob Wolf I've always really enjoyed. Like one of the big things is I come from kind of like the paleo, like that's how I got into nutrition. I've always been a huge fan of Rob Wolf because he was willing to change his stance on things when evidence supported it. And for me, that's a really big thing, is like if you're so tied up and egotistical that you can't ever change what you say because you said it once, then like I don't want to follow you. Like you're more interested in being right, like as a person, than you are in being right in your stance. And that's one thing I've always really appreciated about Rob Wolf. And then a bunch of his ones with like Andy Stumpf have been really good. I really, really like Andy Stumpf a lot.
And Andy Stumpf has his own podcast called Clear Hot. So
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No, I totally lost over that. He's been going on for probably, I want to say like a year and a half now, and he's just his life experiences, but then he's also got a great sense of humor, kind of a dry humor, dude. Andy Stumpf is. He's the real deal, man. I enjoy listening to him. Has anybody ever said you kind of look like him?
No.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah, yeah. I when you and I met downstairs, I was like, dude, he looks a lot like Andy Stumpf.
Hey, man, that's cool. I'll take it.
Dude, and Rogan has so many, man. There's a specific one that he did with Brian Callen years ago.
Okay, yeah.
Where they talk about, I can't even remember, like, he has like 2,000 almost, or something like that, like an absurd amount. So
yeah,
I can't remember it, but what was so important and crucial for me was looking at somebody who's accomplished something that you want and viewing it as motivation instead of jealousy, and how jealousy is this kind of weak emotion where you look at them and immediately you start to make excuses. You're like, oh, well, they have this or they have that, or like, instead of looking at it and using it as a source of motivation and being like, they're doing something that I'm not to get something that I want but don't yet have.
Right.
What are they doing differently than me? And viewing it as like really feedback was an important thing for me. And it's funny because I don't know that like in his podcast he has so many and there's so much good information. But like for me, I think for one of the most interesting things that I do with podcasts is like I don't always remember an entire episode, but there's just a specific part that really resonates with me that I kind of. So that was a really important one for me to hear because I was at this pivotal moment where I was still teaching, but I knew that my heart was in nutrition coaching.
Right.
And I was like, well, how do I build a successful nutrition coaching business? How do I make this happen, even though I'm in this job right now that was honestly making me super miserable? Like it just wasn't the right environment for me.
Right.
And hearing that really was one of the big things that let me know, like, just keep pushing, you know, just keep working at it and chipping away at what you want to do. And eventually it'll become something that you can make a full-time gig. And 5 years later now that's all I do.
It's a reality.
It's all I do is nutrition coaching.
Yeah.
So
cool, man. Well, let's jump in and dive into a little bit of kind of your backstory, kind of the childhood stuff like that. Alex, if you don't mind just sharing with myself and the listeners kind of where you grew up, kind of like, you know, just touch on a little bit of like, you know, if you have siblings and kind of what your upbringing looked like, then, you know, moving into school and stuff like that, if you were involved in extracurricular activities like sports or band, just to kind of paint a picture of the young edition of Alex. And then I listened to a couple podcasts that you were on sharing your story, and in there you mentioned being like overweight and stuff. So if you don't mind just kind of talking about that and just working us kind of up towards the end of high school, and then once we kind of get there, we'll jump into kind of post high school and what that looked like.
Cool. So. Yeah, man. So I'm the youngest of 3 boys, and I grew up in Portland, Oregon. And so I have 2 older brothers. Growing up, I had a really fun childhood, man. Like, I never knew that my family was poor until I got older, until I actually heard my mom and dad talk about it. But like, I always just remember having like a super fun upbringing. Growing up, I was always a bit of like an anxious kid. I actually had to go to a different preschool than the one that I went to because I would have these kind of childhood panic and anxiety attacks during nap time. And so for me, I would like wake up and like throw up. And it was I didn't realize that it was panic and anxiety attacks until I got older and became an adult. I was like, oh, those were anxiety attacks. But I went to this elementary school and had like this child therapist, probably is what you would call her, this lady named Tammy Tack. And she gave me a name for it. She's like, you know, these because I would take things and I would catastrophize them in my mind, and then I would blow them so out of proportion that that's what would give me an anxiety attack. And she was like, these are the what if monsters. She's like, you're taking these situations and you need to ask yourself, is this a what if monster thought or is this an Alex thought? Where's this coming from? And for whatever reason, man, like that allowed me to kind of move past that for a period of time. Right. And then a little bit later, you know, my parents got divorced when I was pretty young, and that was difficult because I was old enough to the point that like my idea of what family was or wasn't was pretty solidified. And I had a really close relationship with my dad because growing up, my mom was like the main breadwinner, and so my dad was like kind of more of a stay-at-home dad and like, you know, a full-time musician and had a part-time job and stuff like that. And so it was definitely difficult because my mom was the one who actually, you know, took custody of. Both my parents lived in Portland, and so I still would see my dad on a weekly basis. Okay. But like my mom was the one who raised me and my 2 older brothers, and so now I look back at it and I'm like, man, the amount of admiration and kind of how I view my mom as a role model has only expanded as I've gotten older, because she did the job of 2 parents on her own with a full-time job. And I remember sometimes like my mom would come home and she'd make us dinner, she would do the dishes, she'd make sure all of our homework was done. She had this 10-minute time frame where she's like, you just can't talk to me, I'm just going to lay on the couch. And thinking back on it, I remember as a little kid being like, but I just want to show her like this trick or this XYZ thing, you know? But now I look back, I'm like, this lady only wanted 10 minutes. She was up at 4:30 in the morning. She got home at 6:30. She made us dinner, made sure all of our homework was done, did the dishes, and then made sure that we all had lunch. And all she asked for was 10 minutes. Like, I look back on it and like, I'm flabbergasted. I honestly can't believe it. But, you know, growing up, on top of like the kind of anxiety attacks and stuff like that, I had some like learning disabilities. So I had a really difficult time reading. I had some like attention deficit disorder issues as well. And then I had a sweet tooth, man, that could not be cured. Like I used to try to sneak, candy for breakfast and stuff like that. And so all those led to kind of like what we were talking about before, where like I was always a chubby kid. Like I was super, super active. I played a ton of sports, soccer, basketball, skateboarding, like wrestled in high school, but wasn't very good at it because I was a late bloomer. So like even up until when I was probably a sophomore or senior in high school, dude, like my voice would crack. I was still carrying around like baby fat and like was just not very confident, but also had these kind of like learning disabilities. I used to take Ritalin for my ADD and a lot of things along those lines. So I grew up, dude, and I was really happy. I had good friends. I love my family. I remember having a super, super fun childhood. But looking back on it now, I can see that like I did have some things going on. Like I had these anxiety attacks that I just kind of glossed over and brushed off. I had the learning disabilities and things like that, which always made school really difficult for me. But a big part of it was my parents always instilled in me, specifically like my mom. She was like, it's okay, you may just have to work harder than other people, but you're still going to get good grades. So like I always had to bust my ass in school to get remotely good grades. Right. And I just accepted that as a fact at some point in time. I'm like, I'm just going to have to work hard. It's fine. Like, and I think that I've probably carried some of that over into my coaching and into what I do now, because a big mind frame that I have is I'm like, if I can just outwork you, then I'll beat you.
Yeah. Now, I want to touch on a little bit of kind of like the anxiety and things of that nature. Is that something that at a kind of a certain stage or certain time in your life that you were just kind of fully able to overcome that, or is that anxiety and stuff like that still a part of your life to this day?
Yeah, I still deal with it. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Like there's better and there's worse days. But it's one of the natures of kind of like, it started to really rear its head when I started to get a little bit deeper into starting my coaching business, because one of the things is like day to day, it's so different, and like you going through the ups and the downs can trigger a lot of that for me. Absolutely. And like, that one of the craziest things is you'll get in this headspace where you'll have kind of some of that anxiety creep in, and then that seems to be when the days are like the worst. Like it's like one bad domino just pushes over all the rest of the dominoes, and it's like, who knows whether it is legitimately just a bad day or whether it's like the way that I show up and the way that I react to things makes it worse. But I still deal with it. Yeah, like I've been pretty open on social media a bunch of different times about like my kind of struggles with some anxiety and things like that, and it really ties into the quote that you opened up the podcast with, where I'm like, one of the things is that when I opened up about dealing with anxiety and having a lot of it, people reached out and they're like, oh my gosh, like I would have never guessed, Right. And that's what kind of inspired me to put some of that stuff out there, is because even the people that I worked with, I work with a lot of my clients, shout out to all the Evolve members, they deal with depression and anxiety, and me opening up about that only drew us in closer and built more rapport. Absolutely. Because being the coach, they saw me as this person who was like perfect, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Like they didn't think that I dealt with the same shit as them. Right. But when I started to open up about it, it really drew them in, because like, oh, well, you deal with this too? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like I understand where you're coming from in a bigger way than you probably even get, because I deal with it too. And one of the things that I don't know how I glossed over this, but like one of the biggest things that's helped me honestly with it has been using CBD in the morning. Like CBD first thing in the morning is really, really helpful. And the only brand that I ever go to is actually my friend's brand. And like Cured Nutrition is the one that I use, and they're actually a Colorado-based CBD company, because I know that they really care, and the stuff they use is super pure. And like that isn't meant to be like a plug. It's just I believe in the jockey, my buddy, so much. Right. And when I started to very first, because he's dealt with anxiety and depression his entire life, when I started to talk to him about it, he goes, dude, I'm not just saying this because I pitch it and because I own a company. He's like, just try it. Just get a high CBD strain and give it a shot. I did, and it started to help massively. Awesome. Yeah. And so that's one of the big things for me, is like if I do it in the morning and then I don't do it at night, I just do it first thing in the morning as part of my routine that I kind of forgot about. That's been really helpful. Meditation has also been massive in that too.
Now, I just want to touch on the whole CBD thing, because that's especially living out here in Colorado. I think there's a bigger magnifying glass on it, but even listening to different podcasts within health and fitness, it seems like kind of the next big thing. It's already here, but I think it's going to continue to grow. And I've heard a lot of positive things about CBD, from different aches and pains to like you talking about anxiety and helping with sleep. So if you don't mind, just touching on CBD a little bit more, Alex, because I know for me, I'm going to frame it this way. So let's say I'm interested, or the listeners interested in trying out CBD. Just like whey protein or our vitamins, there's legit companies. There's companies that are putting plastic in their protein or lying about different things. So if somebody wants to just outside, I know Cured Nutrition, but how can you go figure out what is a legit CBD product?
So one of the big things, you want to look at their overall process and distillation. You also want to look at kind of who they are as a company. One of the big things that's really interesting is I had a friend who I recommended CBD to, and he was using it for anxiety. And he's like, well, he started to describe the way that he felt when he took it, and he's like, it made things worse. And I was like, well, you sound like you're getting high. You don't sound like you're actually getting a pure form of CBD.
Right.
And so I sent him some Cured stuff, and he's like, oh my God, this is a night and day difference. And one of the big things is that there are a lot of people, like you were mentioning, who are in it for a cash grab. They're people who, they see an opportunity. They don't really want to help people. And because of the whole big kind of cannabis rise, they're just jumping in to kind of have it be on their shelf and to have another thing. Whereas when my friend tried the Cured, he's like, it's squelching the anxiety because it's pure. They don't have THC mixed in. You want to look for one, if you're specifically using it for that, you want to look for one that is THC free or really, really, really low on the amount of THC that they have in it, because there's probably going to be a tiny bit of residual that's just going to be in there from the plant. But you want to get a really, really low THC one if you're strictly looking for a form of CBD for inflammation or to kind of help with anxiety or to help with sleep and stuff like that. You really want to look at specifically the company. You want to look at their distillation process to make sure that they're taking it through multiple different distillations, removing all the impurities, and it's going to sound funny, but look at the actual company. Do they look like they're real legit people that are trying to help folks, or does it look shady? Do you see anybody's face on their ads, or is it just always bottles? And it's tough to say, man. The only exposure I've really had has been to Cured, and so I feel like I lucked out there. But I think that's one of the big things with them is I know that for them, they're trying to kind of overshadow the bad companies by just putting out more good product.
Cool. Now, I just want to just touch on this really quickly. Now, so THC, because I don't know. This is a world that I don't know anything about. You know what I mean? So and I'm sure there's going to be listeners that don't know much about it, but they're interested in learning more. Yeah. So the THC, is that basically the part of the marijuana plant that gets you high?
Yeah, it's the psychoactive part of it.
Okay, so that's why then when you're looking for a legit CBD product, you want THC free, so you're not walking around high, right?
Yeah, or really low.
Really low. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So let's. I also just kind of want to touch on, so with all of these, with the different learning disabilities that you had, going through school and stuff, Alex, and then being chubby, as you said, and overall, it sounds like you said you had an awesome childhood, you're very active and all that. But was there anything from maybe some of the other kids that they made fun of you? Was there any negative stuff kind of coming at you that you kind of had to deal with because of some of the learning disabilities and being overweight and stuff, or not necessarily?
I think every kid gets kind of bullied. You get picked on, especially in high school and stuff like that. Being a chubby skater kid with long hair and having braces, I probably wasn't the very first choice for the prom date. Late bloomer,
yeah. I was too, man. It's you got the whole mix thing.
Yeah, so it's you're gonna get a little bit of shit. But one of the big things for me is that I was always a pretty funny guy, and so I used comedy as a really good way to kind of almost mask a lot of what was going on, or turn things into a funny situation. I was really good at that because I wasn't confident, man. So I would mostly try to use comedy, and if I was uncomfortable in a situation, if I got into a certain situation in the classroom where I didn't know the answer, but I was being called on, I'd crack a joke to take the attention off of it, man. It was a pretty easy fix, but yeah, absolutely, definitely got bullied a little bit.
Yeah, okay. So let's transition Alex into kind of like post high school?
Yeah.
What did that look like? Let's just unpack kind of, after you graduate high school, maybe even touch on like what you were planning on doing your senior year, and then did that stay the same? Did it change? Kind of where was everything heading after you graduated from high school?
So I decided to go to college. One of the funny things was in high school, my middle brother, Dustin, was like, you got to take the Human Development and Family Sciences class because it's going to be you and just nothing but a bunch of chicks. And I was like, cool, I'm into that. So I went and I did it, and he was right, but I also really liked teaching. Okay. And I didn't know it until I kind of got set on that path. And so the next thing after that was to go run the high school preschool. So we had a preschool that was like a Head Start classroom inside of our high school, and I was one of the only males, and I was the only male in the classroom working. And I just found that I had a natural kind of gift with kids in terms of like teaching, and they gravitated towards me. They found comfort in like me as a person, and I just kind of like built rapport with them really quick. I think probably because males are so rare in like education that like there's a certain amount of just kind of like there's a certain amount of being drawn to both males and females in terms of having them as teachers.
For sure.
And so there's a certain amount of like kids who just want to like roughhouse and just want to like, in like a safe manner. I wasn't like doing WWE moves or anything like that. But it's like kids need to be physical and they want to like roughhouse, and like there's a certain energy that a guy brings that a woman doesn't in that field of education. And so I decided that I wanted to become a preschool teacher, and I had goals to actually open up and run my own preschool going into college. And so I got into the Human Development and Family Sciences program at Oregon State University, and I went through as a teacher there. And in going through that program, when I got out, I still had the idea that I wanted to teach. And that was a really eye-opening experience for me because just like anybody in college, man, I went in there and started to party a ton.
Yep.
And I was taking this really work-intensive 12-credit class where you go in and you essentially run a preschool.
Wow.
So you're responsible for everything from the planning of all the activities to make sure that it meets up with all the outcomes and the directives that the kids have to have done by the end of the year. You have to come up with the stations. You have to come up with pretty much everything A to Z, and you do it with 1 to 2 other people, but you run the preschool essentially. And so I wasn't doing a good job. Like I was going in hungover. I was probably still drunk a few times, like just like not showing up in the way that I needed to. And I respected the hell out of the teacher. And I could tell that they were disappointed in me. And one day I was talking to one of the teacher's aides, and he just pretty much laid it out for me. He's like, listen, man, like we both see a massive amount of potential in you, but you're not showing up right now. You're on the path to like maybe pass this class. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I knew I wasn't showing up, but it wasn't until somebody was just like, you are not doing a good job in this right now, that I was like, you're wasting such a gift and such an opportunity. Like, how dare you? You know how many people would kill to be in your shoes right now?
Right.
To have this opportunity, and you're kind of pissing it away. So that was a real come to Jesus moment with me that like really kind of like I turned everything around. And at the end of the year, I got an A in that class, and I had the teacher pull me aside, and she goes, I have never seen anybody make a turnaround in their performance in this class like you have. She's like, she's like, I can't tell you this on record in front of the other people, but like, you're my favorite student I've ever had come through this class. And I was like, wow. Like, cause I had such respect for her. Like, to hear that was, it was really special to me, because she was like, I've never seen anybody have a turnaround. You probably put in more effort in this last half of the year that you turned things around than I've seen other people put in for the entire year.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was a really big turning point where I was like, okay, I'm equipped to do this. Like that only bolstered my passion for it, right? And so after that, when I graduated, I became a teacher in the worst teaching market that there was out there. You know, on the front cover of the Oregonian, which is the local newspaper back home in Portland, it was like worst time to be a teacher in 10 years was the headline when I graduated. I'm like, awesome.
Yeah.
So when I graduated, I went directly into this like private Christian school for 2.5 years, and I learned a ton there. But in doing that, that's where I really fell in love with nutrition. When it was a classroom full of me and any day 11 to 13 kids, you know, mostly boys. And when I became a teacher was also right when the popularization of like gluten-free, dairy-free, like kind of the paleo-esque movement got really, really popular. And so suddenly all these kids in my class would have all these different dietary restrictions that I had to be aware of and make sure that they didn't fall into throughout the day. And so during this time I was, you know, getting older. I'm like, you know, at the age of like 24, 25 is not really baby fat anymore. It's like you're just fat. And
right.
like, you know, I still had, I could, super energy crashes throughout the day, really bad sweet tooth. And so it led me to really question a lot of the stuff that I wasn't happy with in my own life, and be like, one of the big things for me too is I always dealt with like lifelong constipation. I didn't know that was like, I didn't know that digestive issues were, I didn't know that I had digestive issues because I thought it was just normal. And so I looked at the changes that these kids were making, and I go, I've always eaten the same way. I've never changed anything. I wonder if I change my nutrition, what will happen? So I went on this kind of journey of trying every diet underneath the sun: veganism, vegetarianism, paleo, keto, using more of like a Weston A. Price kind of like bone broth heavy with like lots of organ meats and like gelatin and stuff like that. You know, macros, calories, cyclical keto, like tried it all, man. And I kind of came to a framework that was really effective for me. And, you know, lost 30 pounds, and suddenly a lot of my attention issues went away. And in doing that, I became kind of a natural resource for a lot of people. And a lot of folks started to come to me and ask me questions. And so I started to kind of give them free advice and help, and kind of move them in the direction that I was going. And I started to think, you know what? I think that I want to do this for a living. You know, I became super passionate. Now I started to spend all my free time, you know, reading studies, reading books, blogs, podcasts. Like, I just started to really try to absorb as much as I could, and it became this total passion of mine. And my ex-girlfriend's dad, who I'm forever indebted to him for like just kind of essentially telling me this. We were sitting out back having a beer one night. He's like a very successful businessman, earns multiple millions of dollars a year with like a spice company. And he's like, Alex, you know, you found what you love. It's like, go out and get a few letters behind your name and just work your ass off, and you'll be successful. And so for me, one of the craziest things is that was all I needed. That was the permission I needed to go really give it a shot. And so I went and got my nutritional therapy practitioner certification, and that was kind of the jumping point, you know. So from there, I had this cool kind of crisscross where I was a teacher, but still like super steeped in nutrition and like going through their certification. So I could take what I was learning in my NTP training and sort of incorporating it into being a teacher as well.
Right.
And so at a certain point in time, I left that school and started another school that was like amazing. It was more of like a Reggio Emilia constructivist inspired school, where it's like very, very child-centered and child-led in what they teach. And so that was just another avenue for me to gain more tools in my tool belt of coaching. And after that job ended, I had I have these like cool moments that I've been lucky enough to have happen to me. And my teaching job there ended because I was brought in as a long-term sub when one of the ladies went out on pregnancy leave, and they had a full-time teaching position that opened up. And I was thinking about applying, and they go, you know what? They're like, you're really good at this job. If you apply, you'll probably get it. They go, but we both know that your heart isn't 100% in that. You're playing it safe. You're young enough that if you go for it and it all falls apart, you'll recover and you'll be fine. Like, you love nutrition. You have to go for it. And so I was like, shit. And so I kind of had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like there's a large amount of fear to jump into it. Like
Absolutely.
you know, like everybody's scared of their own greatness. You know what I mean? Like, and so for me, I kind of worked this other kind of part-time job, and then did coaching on the side. And me and the person who I worked in the warehouse with had a disagreement one day, and he was like, well, maybe I should find somebody else to do this job. And it was this moment where I was like, he'd said it before, but he owed me money before. And I was like, he might screw me over if I quit right now. But we were all squared up, and I was like, you should. And he's like, what? I go, I feel so strongly pulled to nutrition coaching. I go, I'd rather write a blog that I know only my mom is reading, because I get so much more gratification out of that than I would come here and get paid every day. You should find somebody else to do this job. I quit. And so it was like fresh out of the frying pan and into the fryer, dude. And so I quit, and I had maybe like 2 or 3 clients at the time. It was like just from scratch, man. Like literally from scratch. And so for me from there, like it was all like, dude, there was times where I ate tuna and greens for months because like that's all I could afford. I stayed up late stressing about bills, stressing about how I was going to pay rent. And like, I just knew that I was destined to work in this field, and this was my passion. So like the shitty times make me so much more grateful for kind of what I have now.
Absolutely.
And so I tried a bunch of different things, and they weren't working. And I was like, fuck, like, what do I need to do to get to where these other people who I look up to are? And one of the biggest things that I noticed was I was like, they have coaches and mentors, and I'd never done that before. And so that's where I kind of went out And like, you can be like, oh yeah, like your podcasts and books, those are your coaches and your mentors. And I agree, like that'll get you to a certain level. But like, if you want to really play at a bigger level, you have to have skin in the game, you know, because when you're paying somebody, you know, like 5 figures, or not 5, probably like 4 figures a month to get coaching from them, you're going to do what they say. You're going to do it. You're going to take action, and you're going to be like, yeah, tell me what to do. Like, you tell me to jump, I'm going to say how high. You know what I mean? So like, in that regard, investing was one of the best things that I ever did, and getting coaches and mentors that I was paying to coach and mentor me has been a massive thing for me inside of like growing my coaching business.
Now, Alex, I want to kind of take a step back to when you were a teacher, and then you started to kind of experiment with your own eating and nutrition. So once you kind of realize like, hey, you know, there is power in what I'm putting into my body in regards to you know, losing weight, feeling better, and all that. Once you kind of started to get that itch and that passion kind of started to come to be with inside of you in regards to nutrition, were there some instances, or did you have an opportunity to take that nutrition? I think maybe you said you did. Were you able to take some of that information about nutrition and begin to apply it with some of these students? And if so, what were kind of some of the results? Was there maybe some changes and shifts in behavior? What did you see before you left the teaching profession in regards to taking that nutrition knowledge and applying it to the kids that you were around?
Yeah, so one of the most interesting things is like behavior change is so, there's such a parallel between using it with preschoolers and using it with the clients that I work with. And like, people probably don't want to hear that. But the thing is, like, if you want somebody to do something, you have to give them a reason to care about it. And so with the kids, parents would come to me and they'd go, well, I want my kid to eat more vegetables. I'm like, cool. Have you ever given them a reason to care about eating more vegetables? Or do you just tell them to eat more vegetables and it's because mom or dad said so? And it was always because I said so. I'm like, yeah, well, like, if I come to you and I tell you, I want you to go do 100 push-ups, are you going to do it? I'm like, no. I'm like, what if I told you I'd give you $100 to do 100 push-ups? Like, yeah, for sure. It's like, then you have some motivation.
Absolutely,
so they never tapped into the motivation of the kids. And so for me, that was a big thing. It was like, is a kid more likely to eat a like big green salad if you make it fun? You let them play with the food. You're like, oh, you know, you see those, you know, olives in there, and you put them on your fingers, and it's like suddenly you have alien hands. It's like an alien hands green sea salad or something like that. You know what I mean?
Perfect,
and like you give them, you make it fun, you make it entertaining. Probably my favorite example is when I was teaching, I had a classroom full of kids, or a classroom full of boys predominantly, and their parents couldn't get them to eat vegetables. And I was like, well, these kids care about being strong, they care about being tough, and the outcome we want is for them to eat more vegetables. I was like, I got it. And so I bring them in a room, pull in like one of those old TVs, and I show them Popeye. I'm like, now is Popeye small and weak, or is Popeye big and strong? Popeye's big and strong. Now, is Popeye eating candy, or is Popeye eating vegetables? Popeye's eating vegetables. And so I would ask them very open-ended leading questions, kind of like taking them to where I wanted them to go, but not directly answering it for them.
Love it, yeah.
And so at the end of it, I just recap everything. I'm like, okay, you know, like, is Popeye small or is he big? Does Popeye have big muscles? Do you want big muscles? What's Popeye eating? What's Popeye not eating? And like, oh, you know, Popeye's eating vegetables. I was like, who wants to be big and strong? Every hand goes up. I'm like, who wants to eat vegetables? Every hand goes up. So I take them from there right into the kitchen. And I would, like, before we watched any of the cartoons, I went in there and set up a whole station to make green smoothies. Perfect. And so we go in there, and I'm like, you get to be involved to the level that you want to be involved. If you just want to wash vegetables, cool. If you want to wash vegetables, you want to cut them up, you want to put them in the blender, and then you want to hit blend, awesome. You get to be involved to the level that you would like to be involved, and that's amazing. Like, I did a different exercise at another preschool that I worked at where we made sweet potato chips.
Okay.
And so there was one kid, I kid you not, he sat there and washed sweet potatoes for 30 minutes straight, to the point where he's taking the skin off them. But like, that's what he wanted to do. And as a result of that, he ended up eating a ton of the snack when he wouldn't eat any other snack.
Right.
And to try to force him to be involved at a level above what he wanted to be involved in wouldn't have been beneficial. And so it was funny, when we finished the green smoothies, it was right when the parents were coming to pick their kids up at the end of the day, and the parents walked in, their jaws almost hit the ground because their kids are slamming these glasses of like green, like, and they'd come to me and they go, how did you do it? And I went, I just gave them a reason to care, you know? Like, another thing was, under kids who were super picky eaters, I found a way to get like the kids to care about eating better. Or if a kid was underweight, I would help the parents find a way to get more calories in so that their kids could gain weight. That was one big thing for a family, was their kid was just thin as a rail. And so I was like, make smoothies and let him pick what he wants to pick to be in the smoothie. I was like, but then put a full can of coconut milk in. It's like 700-800 calories, like, but it's not going to be so much that he won't be able to finish it. So just finding little things like that where I could incorporate them. And I feel like, honestly, being a preschool teacher gave me so many of the skills I don't know that I would have developed to become a better nutrition coach.
Cool. Now, I want to touch on, because, I'm a teacher myself, and I see what just like the school lunches and stuff, and what the kids are eating there. Do you have any thoughts or opinions or anything that you wouldn't mind sharing, or you want to share in regards to kind of like, let's just say if you're a teacher like myself or a parent, and the option is basically school food, or they have to bring their maybe a cold lunch or something. What are maybe some steps, or what are some things that we can do as teachers and parents to kind of like help our kids eat better? And I know you just kind of shared a little bit about making things fun, but let's just say, like, what are some foods maybe that a parent or a teacher could give a student for like a snack, or to put in their lunchbox that's gonna kind of just help them, that they'll maybe enjoy, but it's also healthy. And then also, like, do you have any suggestions of what maybe a teacher or parents can do within a school setting to maybe help the school understand, like, the importance of nutrition and how we're fueling or feeding our students and kids?
Yeah, man, there's a couple different parts there. I think one of the most powerful things people can do with kids, if they want them to eat better, is give them more power over what they're eating.
Okay.
I think that one of the best things that I've ever recommended to people is I go, only put out good options and let the kid eat as much or as little of anything that they want to have, because one of the big things is that as adults, we're always trying to be in power. We're always trying to, tell them exactly what to do. We're always trying to control everything.
Right.
When you give kids more autonomy, you'd be amazed at how much better they do with things, because, they played a part in it. Like, everybody wants ownership over things, right? And if you're always being told what to do, you never have any ownership over anything. But if I take a kid who's a picky eater and I only put out good options, and I go, eat as little or as much as you want of any of these foods, but this is what's for lunch, they're going to eat something. Okay. And there's no losing in that, because let's say they only eat, I don't know, like cut up bell peppers. Like, it's still a great option, At the end of the day, the reality is, if you make it a win-win-win where they get to pick, they feel empowered, but you only put out good options for them to eat and they choose, nobody's losing there. Like, if you only have good options, it's a win-win-win. And I think that that's a big missing part, is like, parents are like, well, I want them to eat these specific foods. I'm like, cool, just put out those specific foods and say, this is what we're having. And I think that people are so afraid of, like, kind of putting their foot down with kids sometimes. I think that that's another aspect that you have to do, is like, you know what, hunger's a pretty good spice. And so if you're hungry, you're going to eat. Now, I'm not saying, like, go out and starve kids or anything like that, but, like, if a kid's hungry, they're going to eat what's in front of them.
Absolutely.
So I think that would be the very first thing, is like, make the kids more empowered, give them more autonomy over what they're eating, and you'd be amazed at how much better they would react to that.
Perfect.
Number two, like, for lunches and stuff like that, it kind of plays a little bit on that. Like, put out 4 or 5 options. Be like, you're going to make your lunch today. You get to pick what you bring. I think that kids, if you only put out good options, they get excited about that. Like, I saw multiple different times where parents did that with kids in the classroom, and the kids would be pumped to eat their lunch, and they'd open up their lunchbox and be like, I made this. You know what I mean? Like, like, showing off, like, this is my lunch, I made this.
Yeah.
But, like, that's how you want kids to feel about food.
Cool.
You don't want them to feel like scared, or like there's always some control factor over it. So I think that for kids, like, the same kind of principles are going to apply. Like, they're growing, so you want them to have enough protein. So I mean, I honestly think, and it's funny because it's a snack that I honestly have a lot of my clients do. String cheese, I think, is a great option. Like, it has some healthy fats, there's some protein, it's easy, you can grab and go, it's tasty. So I think that that's a really good one. Any kind of protein source, man, like leftover chicken, maybe something like a good high quality deli meat, do deli meat roll-ups where it's like you have deli meat, you like roll it up in a veggie, or you have like a piece of avocado and a bell pepper and you roll that up and put like a little toothpick in it. It's like fun. I think hand food is really good. Like, kids are very what's the right word there? Like kinesthetic. Like they want to touch stuff and feel it. And so I think that if you can allow them to do that with their food, I think that they end up actually doing a lot better, you know?
Okay, cool.
So things like that. Fruits and vegetables, like cut up apples, bananas, like we've gotten so far afield in like the nutritional world that we've gotten away from the basics where it's like, oh, like you shouldn't have fruit. It's like, no, fruit is healthy. Like don't eat 6 pounds of it probably, but like there's nothing wrong with like giving a kid an apple or a banana or anything. Like people get so crazy on one side of things that it's like, you know, the cultures that live the longest are also the ones that eat the largest plant matter, and a lot of them do have a lot of like unrefined carbs in their diet. Like carbs aren't bad, but it's like when we mix carbs with, like you and I were talking about, like the fat, the salt, the sugar, and then make it really easy to overeat. It's like nobody's sitting down eating spoonfuls of sugar, but like you give people a donut and they'll have multiple donuts.
Absolutely.
Like, and I think that's where we really get lost. And I think that like a really good high quality diet for kids is going to be a well balanced one, man. Like it's a very unsexy answer, but it would be, you know, lots of fruits and vegetables, a good amount of carbs in there, a good amount of healthy fats, and then make sure that they're getting enough protein, because a lot of people do have a tendency to under eat protein, but with them being growing bodies, they need to have those raw materials coming in that are going to help them promote that growth. And then also, like as funny as it sounds, like kids are hard charging, man. Like they beat up their bodies and they're going 1,000,000 miles an hour and they're so active throughout the day that you have to get them to just sit down and eat too, is a big part of it. So you have to make it foods that are easy for them to grab and go, things that are going to be like tasty, and things that are also, in my opinion, I think having a higher protein diet. And like I know that there's also still the myth out there, like, oh no, too much protein is bad for your kidneys. Well, it's bad for your kidneys if you have a pre-existing kidney problem, not if you're just a normal functioning person, because then you can get rid of all the kind of broken down amino acids. And so it's funny, I think what's honestly a healthy diet for a kid is going to be really similar to what's going to be a healthy diet for adults.
Cool. So I want to touch on a little bit in regards to kind of like your overall philosophy on your website. You kind of have a few things listed. It starts with nutrition, then sleep, nutritious movement, and then stress management. So if you don't mind, just kind of like the nutrition, let's just take those 4 things. And like, so nutrition, kind of like what is your, and I know there's individualization and things like that, and you kind of just talked about well balanced, but if you don't mind just maybe breaking down a little bit maybe what your philosophy is, if there is a philosophy, and then let's just do that for each, and then like kind of like sleep, like why do we need sleep, what's the importance of that in an overall healthy body, the importance of movement, and then stress management. So if you don't mind, Alex, just kind of breaking each of those 4 things down, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so even in my stance of like nutrition, there's been kind of an evolution over the years where like I went from being really focused on diets to more focusing on like what are the basic principles? Like what are the things that people do in the cultures where they are the leanest and the healthiest and live the longest? And so the things that we found are really interesting. It's like, you know, I'm a firm believer in you should have a lot of plant matter in your diet, you know, whether that's fruits and vegetables or you know, non-starchy veg, anything like that. So I think that like Michael Pollan kind of nailed it when he's like, you know, eat real foods, mostly plants, not too much. And I think that like we can sit here and argue all day long about the very specific diets that go along with everything, you know, like whether it's keto or paleo or vegan. But I think that when we peel that away and we just get down to the principles of what we need to be healthy and live a long time and have kind of like an optimized life, I think it really comes down to having like a well-balanced diet where it's like you eat a predominantly very healthy diet that has a lot of plant matter, you know, enough carbohydrates to support your activity levels, enough healthy fats for hormone production, and then a good amount of protein to support overall tissue regrowth and reproduction and make it high satiety. But then you also have the other aspect of it where it's like you want to live a fun life. You want to go out from time to time and kick your heels up and like have a few drinks or go grab tacos or something along those lines, and to not make nutrition so black or white that you feel guilt, shame, or feel poorly about going out and enjoying yourself from time to time. Now, one of the big things is that I do believe in having more of like a flexible approach to your nutrition, where I think that one of the big things that I've seen with a lot of people and the folks who seem to be kind of drawn to my message is people who have a tendency to be really far on the side of restriction, and then they rebound and eat a bunch of crap food. And so for me, one of the big things is like, if I can help somebody fit in 2 to 3 cookies throughout the week, and that prevents them from housing an entire package of them on Sunday because the diet always starts on Monday, then like, that's what I'm going to do. And my favorite thing is to get people to a point where I can help them incorporate the foods that they enjoy eating and end up getting really good results, because then it feels like a lifestyle change. It's not just another diet and the didn't work diet pile for them. Perfect. And so for me, my philosophy is based around eating predominantly whole foods, but also having enough space in your mind and like in your approach to be able to kick your heels up and enjoy those foods when you want to enjoy them, as it is supportive of your goals. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like that's a big thing for me is I meet people where they're at and I help them take the next step. Instead of saying this is how we do it, I go, this is where we're at, this is the next step, and this is how we're going to take this step. And I think that that's a really, really important aspect that so many people miss, because it's like, everybody's given all the methods. Everybody's sold the diets, and they're sold the diets without realizing that there's a principle behind it. Where if you burn more calories than you're taking in, you are going to lose weight. No matter where it comes from.
Right.
Obviously, like for health purposes and for overall like disease prevention and cognitive performance, like the majority of those foods should be mostly whole foods, but at the end of the day, you can still overeat good quality foods and gain body fat or have it stall out your weight loss. Sure. And so for me, it's getting people to recognize that there's principles, and we're going to adhere to that principle. But what we choose to make it so that we adhere to that principle, whether that is tracking calories or macros or veganism or a more kind of paleo diet or keto or anything along those lines, the method we can be very flexible with. The principle is less flexible. So choose whatever method you want that helps you adhere to that specific principle, and we're good. So that would be kind of my overall stance in a very long-winded way on nutrition.
No, that's great, man. And then so let's talk about sleep and just the importance of sleep, and talking about health and everything that falls underneath that.
Yeah, so for sleep, one of the reasons that I think that it's so powerful is because literally everything head to toe in our body is literally affected by it. So everything from our cognitive performance, how impulsive somebody is all dramatically impacted by sleep. They've done a number of studies that show that people are more impulsive, but they're also specifically more impulsive around food when they're more sleep deprived. It raises our impulsivity, and instead of leveraging stress hormones to escape a dangerous situation, we leverage those stress hormones to choose to eat the donut at the office 7 days a week. And so everything from essentially like cognitive performance, our impulsivity around food and the choices we make, physical performance, so not just strictly kind of like in the gym, but also our recovery from it is all dramatically impacted. Your overall metabolism, your ability to burn and or take in calories is all impacted by it as well. So your appetite is dramatically impacted by sleep as well. And then also on top of that, tissue regrowth, your hormones, your overall hormonal profile. If you have somebody who is strictly sleep deprived, their hormonal profile 9 times out of 10 is going to be crap. Yeah. And so literally everything head to toe is dramatically impacted by sleep. And the thing is, it's free, and all it requires you to do is get off Facebook 30 minutes earlier each night. And you can have all, when I talk to people, I've always done this funny thing where I lay out all the benefits of sleep. And I was like, if I could bottle that up and put it in a pill form, I'd be living on a yacht, sleeping on a bed of gold coins, eating dinosaur eggs for breakfast, But instead of that, it's totally free. All you have to do is just change a few of your habits so you can get to bed a little bit earlier. And I mean, dude, I've seen such crazy benefits for myself and for everybody else, when I just get my sleep locked in.
Absolutely, yeah. Now you mentioned getting off Facebook about 30 minutes before you go to sleep. I know something that I've come to realize within the last year or two is the importance of not being exposed to blue light, which comes through TVs, computer screens, our smartphones, and all that. So if you don't mind, because there's still a lot of people that I talk to out there that they don't even, they have no clue about the blue light. They have no clue about how that disrupts our sleep cycle and all of that stuff. So just really quickly, Alex, just in a few words or whatever, just speak to myself and the listeners about the importance of getting off the electronics and all of those devices, before they go to sleep. And then I think you said maybe 30 minutes. I've heard some people up to 2 hours of putting their phones away. So just touch on that a little bit, the importance of staying away from that blue light and kind of where the blue light comes from, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So the blue light essentially sends a signal to our brain that it is daytime and that we should be up. And as a result of that, it suppresses the production of a kind of sleep-promoting hormone that our brain makes called melatonin. So with that, with the suppression of melatonin, you don't wind down, you don't fall into kind of the more sleepy doze-off state that we always fall into right before we hit sleep. So the blue light kind of blocks the production of melatonin and makes it way more difficult for us to get to sleep, but also to stay asleep as well. And so by getting off, the big thing for me too is I'm also kind of a realist about it. I'm like, stay off your laptop and your phone 2 hours before. Like, I don't know anybody's going to do that. I don't personally do it, and
right.
I would never recommend something to somebody that I've A, never done, or B, don't do.
Right.
Because I feel like that's very inauthentic.
Yep.
Because like one of the big questions I get from people is like, so what does your sleep schedule look like? And I'll be the first to admit that like sometimes being a self-employed kind of type A driven person, like sometimes I've in the past, like I was not sleeping enough, and I can fully admit to that. But the difference in when I started to, kind of essentially, eat my own words and started to really lock in my sleep schedule, dude, like my ability to wake up without an alarm, to perform at a higher level for longer, to like not feel the need for as much caffeine, like
right.
all these different things dramatically improved. So it was when I started to kind of take my own medicine that I started to see a big thing. Like I try to stay off as much as I can leading up to it, but I'll be very honest, like sometimes there's times where I'm on my phone right up until I fall asleep, right until I plug it in and put it right down. And so I would feel very disingenuous and dishonest to be like, you have to get off your phone an hour. It's like, I don't know anybody that's doing it. I'm not doing it, so I can't honestly say that. But for me, with blue lights, I just notice that when I get off of it for at least a little bit of time, I just feel like it's better for me in my sleep. But I don't have a problem falling asleep.
Yeah, either
like for whatever reason, like I push it hard on a daily basis, and so like I'm working very hard inside of my business, but also like try to go to the gym and like so by the time that I'm ready to sleep, man, I'm ready to sleep.
Yeah,
so
I hear you. Yeah, for sure. Cool. So movement, and I know this is obviously very important to you personally because movement is something that's a part of your daily routine that you mentioned earlier. So let's just touch on the importance of movement, exercise, things of that nature.
Yeah, so I think that honestly, everybody gets so concerned with like the gym. I think the gym is absolutely important. Like one of the biggest things for me that I'll tell people is I'm like, doing things physically, being able to like a deadlift or squat a certain amount of weight that I wasn't able to before is very empowering, because I think that I look at it and I go, I didn't used to be able to lift that weight, but now I can. I wonder what other areas of my life I am kind of not able to do something, but with enough effort and kind of, structure to it, I will be able to. And for me, I just feel better. Like, I think that one of the most neglected aspects and one of the best probably weight loss tools that I give to people all the time is walking. Like, because it doesn't leave you drenched in a pile of sweat, and because it doesn't leave you out of breath, and like with chalk on your hands, doesn't mean it's not effective. Like, walking is also one of the big things for people who live in the blue zones. Like, they just are way less sedentary than us. They get up, they move around, they work jobs that require them to be physical. And for me, I think it's also good because it breaks up the day. Like, you get out there and move around. Nutritious movement for me, the way that I kind of worded it the way that I did is it's tough for me to try to prescribe one way of doing everything to everybody because everybody's so different. Like, like for me, in the past, I did a lot of jiu-jitsu and Thai boxing and didn't lift all that much. And nowadays, like I found a gym that I'm going to be heading back to. I haven't been doing nearly as much of that, but I've been getting in and doing strength training every day for about 45 to an hour because I have a gym like right here at my spot. So like, I just think nutritious movement is all about finding a way that you enjoy, that you look forward to doing instead of dreading, like, because it's nurturing you, like I look forward to going to the gym every day now and like lifting. Whereas honestly, if you would have spoken to me 2 months ago, I neglected going to the gym for like 2 weeks straight. And I was really honest with a couple people about it because I was like, you know what? I'm just not fired up about doing it.
Right.
So for me, like the whole nutritious movement thing is like finding a form of movement that you can do almost every day that like isn't going to beat you up. It's going to be appropriate for you where you're at. Like, I'm not going to tell Jane, who's 50 pounds overweight, that she should go jump into CrossFit. Right. But when I have a dude who wants to gain some muscle and gain some confidence and push himself in an anaerobic capacity, like, I'm going to tell him to go do CrossFit.
Perfect. Okay, so the last one that's kind of bundled up in kind of your personal philosophy and stuff and how you coach and teach people is stress management. So what does stress management mean? And then I know there's different stressors and different types of stress, so if you don't mind just kind of breaking that down, and how maybe somebody that's like in your position or my position, very type A, go, how can we better manage that that negative stress that's in our life?
Yeah, so stress management is a really interesting thing that I included because whether anybody wants to admit it or not, I think 99% of people are emotional eaters. Everybody has those foods that they find comforting, and when you can separate stress from other things, you can manage it better. And so for me, I think that we all have a certain amount of unavoidable stress. It's just the nature of the life that we live.
Right.
But when you find tools and ways to cope with and more constructively use that stress, I think that can be one of the keys to unlocking somebody's true potential in their nutrition and their nutritious movement, and then overall just kind of living their best quality life that they can. Because I think that so many people get crippled by stress that when you give people the tools to be able to better manage it, you allow them to kind of take the shackles off in many regards. And so for a lot of folks, when you address that, suddenly they start to eat better, suddenly the relationships improve, they're not as snappy, they feel better at their job, and they don't hate it as much. I've seen massive things happen where people go from just being a stress ball to at least having some tools to better manage it, and suddenly they are nicer to the kids, suddenly they eat better and don't stress eat as much, suddenly the relationship with their husband improves. All these different things can come by just strictly managing this one area of their life. Right. And so some of the best tools that I have found is, funny enough, meditating. That's why I do it first thing in the morning. Is I can wake up and be stressed first thing in the morning. That's just the way that I am.
Yep.
So meditating makes it forces me to calm down and kind of create that space where I'm just going to be present and be here in the moment and not worry about what could potentially happen. CBD has also been really great for that for me. Some of the other ways that I really like to manage stress is lifting weights, just doing something, whether it is Thai boxing, whether it is lifting weights or anything along those lines. Watching stand-up comedy is actually phenomenal for me. I absolutely love stand-up comedy. It's hard to be stressed when you're laughing. And I think also just carving out time to go for walks and stuff like that is massive too.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing all of that. That's
absolutely
super in depth. And I want to just talk a little bit. We've been going over an hour now, so we'll kind of start trying to wrap things up here. But just a few more important things, Alex, I want to touch on and talk to you about. We mentioned in that opening reading, which was something that you posted recently on your own personal Instagram page. In there it talked about body image, and I know for me personally, as a man, since I was a tween, even up to this day, there's issues and struggles that I've had with my body image. Mm-hmm. That's a guy, and I'm sure with you because you wrote that, I'm sure there's been some body image issues for you.
Totally.
Also, I think it's even more predominant, with females.
Absolutely.
So just however you want to take that, just touch on body image and maybe just people understanding hey, it's a process to lose weight or gain muscle and kind of change how you look. It can be done, but it's going to take some time. And then, just if people are really kind of maybe depressed or struggling with some things and having that anxiety because of the body image thing, kind of maybe give us some tools to maybe overcome that or work through that.
I think the biggest thing that happens there, why it's such a big issue, is comparison, right?
Right.
So what you have to understand is that a lot of the people that you see online that you look up to probably don't actually look like that year-round, nor do they look like that for probably longer than 1 or 2 weekends. I have friends who are in the industry, and it was an eye-opener for me when they go, we diet very, very aggressively for 12 weeks. We bring 6 to 8 outfits, and we go out with a professional photographer, and we get 300-400 pictures taken that are all in the same weekend when we're super shredded, super miserable, really dehydrated. But we look absolutely great. We feel like shit, but we look great. And so we have 8 different outfits to change into, and they take those photos and they slow drip them out on social media throughout the year. But you don't know that because you don't know them and you don't have a personal relationship with them. What you don't know is that person may have a very unhealthy relationship with food. They may have some disordered eating going on. They for sure have body dysmorphia. I have a couple friends of mine who have done competitions, and they have hundreds of thousands of people that follow them online. But what you don't see is that because they were that shredded, now in their mind, anything else less than that is strictly unacceptable. Like, I have a really good friend of mine who will joke around about being fat. I'm like, dude, you have abs. You have abs. Like, I love you to death. You're not fat. But like, he got so shredded that like anything less than that now is completely unacceptable to him. And so what you don't understand is that those people are showing you exactly what they want you to see. They're not showing you the behind the scenes of like, not eating with people, avoiding social situations, eating the exact same thing every day, like not, going to the bathroom for 4 days before the photo shoot because they were eating so little food that their metabolism has like slowed down a tiny bit. Like all these different things have happened. All you see is the perfect picture of them on a beach in a bikini, probably, photoshopped a tiny bit and airbrushed to look amazing, So the big thing that you have to understand is like, you can't compare your day 1 to somebody else's year 10.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people get caught in is, that person has a long line of training and of dieting that you probably don't have. They dieted super aggressively and they don't look like that year round. And then like the big elephant in the room is like anabolics. I know a ton of those people and I'm really good friends with them and they're very open to me about their personal use of them. And so one of the things you have to understand is like, they're not going to have a discount code for, anabolic steroids, but they'll have it's probably not the BCAAs, it's probably not the whey protein, but even especially with women, dude, like that's one big thing that it's like it's slowly but surely kind of coming out, but like there's a lot of women out there who you probably look up to and you compare yourself to and feel like crap because you don't look like them, but what you don't understand is they are taking anabolic steroids.
Absolutely.
And so that's a big thing that I know is very taboo for people to mention or to bring up and to talk about, but I mean, my friends have taken it and kind of like hurt themselves with it and stuff like that. So like you have to realize there's a lot going on behind the scenes that you don't see. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that you don't know. And there's years and years of training and dieting and going through bulks and cuts that you don't see. So to compare yourself, who is a few steps shy of the finish line of a marathon, and feel like crap because you're 1 mile into a 26-mile race, doesn't mean that you can't get to the end of that race. It just means that you have to be honest and okay with where you're at, because that person that you're comparing yourself to one day was exactly where you're at today, and they probably feel exactly how you feel right now. The only difference is they didn't give up and they kept going.
Right. And that's something too. That's why I picked that Instagram post of yours, because people have to realize that what we see on social media is generally just a very small snippet of somebody's life.
Yeah.
And again, I love how you worded it in that writing. It's we see social media for the most part with most people. It's a highlight reel. It's when they're in Cancun on vacation. It's when they just post bodybuilding or physique competition and they're looking the best that they've ever looked, or all of that stuff. It's all of these highlights, and it's like you get onto Instagram or Facebook or whatever social media platforms that you hang out on. It's just like you're inundated with highlights. And then from my understanding, and I think it can probably happen to all of us, we kind of get like, I use this word loosely, but kind of depressed because it's like, well, I wish I was, in Cancun, or I wish I was, that big, and, I wish I had, a whole full tattoo sleeve like that. And it's just like, that stuff can mess with your mind. That's where it's like, we have to understand, and just listeners have to understand, like, it's a highlight reel. And a lot of times, man, it's not even real. It's fake. Like, they're standing in front of a jet, and it's not theirs, or they're standing in front of a whatever car, and it's like, that's not even there. You know what I mean? So it's just like, a lot of social media, it's just like back in the day, it's like, people would say something like, well, don't believe everything you hear, on TV or the radio. Now it's just social media,
Yeah.
So just touch on that again, Alex, just like to maybe reiterate with people, like, social media, it can be an amazing platform, but it can also bring a lot of negativity into people's lives. So maybe for you personally, I'm sure you have, but have you ever experienced maybe some of that negativity? And then what do you do to kind of, work through that in regards to social media? Because I'm assuming it's a very big part of you being an entrepreneur and the type of coaching that you do. So how do you kind of use social media, not necessarily for your business, but how do you maybe avoid some of that negativity and kind of do you set aside, go on maybe a fast from social media? What does that look like for you, Alex?
It's going to surprise you. It's going to be a very different answer. It's gratitude.
Gratitude?
Like
cool.
at the end of the day, me feeling like crap because I don't drive a Bentley or because I don't have a jet is strictly due to the fact that I'm not grateful for where I'm at right now. Because I have come a long way into like, it's unfair to me to look at somebody else's journey that I don't really know the behind the scenes of and say, why am I not there?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, like, I don't know very much about the person. I don't know how they got there. And so for me, it's like, to not be grateful for what you can't be jealous and grateful at the exact same time. Right. It's just not possible.
Right.
So if I can shift myself over to a place of being like, I've built a successful nutrition coaching business. Like, I'm getting to where I want to go, and it may not be on the exact timeline that other person has, but like, it's a really funny anecdote. Like, so many times in my life, it's come back to being grateful for something. It's coming back to realizing all that I have going for me. And like, yeah, do I always want to do better? 100%. But all I can control is the day-to-day actions that I take. I can't control the exact outcome of like where I'm going to be at. Like, you can influence it. I'm not saying that. Like, your day-to-day actions are what are going to influence it though. And so for me, a big thing has been because I'll get caught up in that. Like, I'm in a mastermind group with a bunch of killers, man. Like, people in there make 5 to 6 times what I do in a month.
Right.
You know? So, but I'm not them. Like, I'm me.
Love it.
And at the end of the day, the thing is, I have come quite a ways in my own business. And so for me to try to like compare my journey to theirs, it's not really fair to me, and it's not really fair to them.
Right.
At the end of the day, you know, and I know a lot of them personally, so like that's easier for me in that regard. But like, the thing is also to look at that person and be like, what are they doing that I'm not? There's obviously something that's gotten them there. So it goes back to kind of what we were talking about with the whole Brian Callen and Joe Rogan thing, where you look at somebody and you can be motivated or you can be jealous.
Right.
I choose to be motivated. I choose to look at them and say, what are they doing that I'm not to get what I want? And what are the ways that I can kind of emulate or reach out to them or like be of service to them, you know, like to like learn from them and things like that. And so for me, that's an important part. But do I fall into it? Yeah, dude, I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like everybody else, you know, like I have shit days as well, where like last week, I think it was a Monday or Sunday, like, dude, I had a day where I just got stuck in a negative mindset, and it crushed the day. Like, I was not able to get a lot of stuff done that I needed to get done. But the big thing to keep in mind is the next day I snapped back out of it. Like, and I look at it, and I was talking to somebody and they were just laughing. They go, that's awesome. And I go, right? Because I knew where they were going with it. And they're like, I know you, and I know that 6 months ago, that would have lasted 3 days, 5 days. That would have like wrecked your week. They go, you snapped out of it and got right back on track the next day and crushed it. And I'm like, cool. Yeah. So it's like, at the end of the day, the big thing is, if you're grateful for what you have, then it's tough to like look at somebody and be like, oh, you know, like, I don't have a jet or I don't have a Bentley. You don't. But you have clean drinking water. Yeah. Like, a long time ago, I was having a conversation with somebody. I've probably reiterated this conversation to like 10,000 people by this moment because it was so powerful for me. I was bitching about something. I was bitching about a first world problem. And my friend was just sitting there smiling, nodding his head. And I was like, oh, he's going to come with something. He's going to crush me. I can just feel it. Yeah. And we finished. He goes, next time you feel like your day is like going poorly or like things are really bad for you, he's like, just remember you go to the bathroom and water that they would kill to drink in third world countries every day.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like, I just sat there for a second. I was like, yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're 100% right now. Like, holy shit, you know, and like, that's such a powerful, like, anytime I feel like I'm having like a rough day,
right?
Like, I come back to that and I'm like, whoa, perspective shift, gratitude. Like, that's where you need to be. You need to cut the shit and get real about like where you're at, and what you want will happen. You can make that happen. But the reality is, like, sitting here being jealous of somebody else, sitting here and like kind of shitting on where I'm at isn't going to get me there. What will is just taking action and being grateful about where I am and what I've accomplished thus far, and also having the drive to want more. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. You know, like, I talked to somebody, what was it, probably like 6 months ago, and they're like, they said something about being happy. I was like, yeah, I'm happy. I'm like, I'm not satisfied though. And they go, elaborate. And I'm like, I'm happy because where I'm at is where I'm at right now. Like, I'm good with that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, but I know there's more for me out there.
Absolutely.
And I want to go get it.
Absolutely.
So where I'm at is good for right now, but I'm not expecting to be here for long.
Love it, man. Love it. Okay, so has there Is there like one maybe place or places, if you want to mention more than one, kind of in the Denver area that you enjoy, or if somebody's going to travel out here to Colorado and be in Denver that you would recommend them checking out?
Yeah, so there's a really good ice cream place named the Inventing Room.
The Inventing Room?
Yeah, they do like this super fancy like nitro ice cream that's really tasty. I had some friends that came and visited from Canada, and we may or may not have been there a couple times when they're out. It's super, super good. So I really like that.
And that's here in the Denver area?
Yeah, so it's over more kind of by Sloan's Lake.
Okay, perfect.
So that would be definitely one area. For really good grub, there's a place down the street from here named Working Class that I really like. And then there's a really good tapas place named Linger. Linger's really good.
Cool.
And then for like getting out and being active, I really like going up to Red Rocks and hiking there. Like it's not super intense, but like it's still just the views up there are absolutely gorgeous. And then that would probably be it for the time being, man.
Cool,
like for coffee and just chill vibes, I really like Improper City down the road.
Okay.
Or there's another place, there's another coffee shop I really like called Allegro.
Awesome.
That's over in the like Tennyson area.
Okay, cool. All right, so Alex, I've got one final question for you,
Right.
and that is, what sets your soul on fire?
Teaching people.
Teaching people. Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's funny. One of the most common questions that I've gotten from people since transitioning over to this is, do you miss teaching? And my response is always the same. I go, no, I just do it in a different facet.
Yep.
I go, this is the thing. I still teach people. I still educate and help them, but it's just in a completely different way. And there's something about that has always been, and I mean, one of my favorite parts of this job is getting up and giving talks. And one of the things that I like about it is I can bring the message that I have to a much larger people, and I feel very in my element up in front of groups talking. I know that for some people that's like scarier for them than death, but for me, it sets me on fire and it makes me really happy. So essentially just continuing to teach and spread my message and to challenge people's preconceived views of wellness and health and nutrition is what really lights me up.
Beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to thank you, Alex, so much again, just for taking time out of your schedule today and hanging out with me and the 127 Fit podcast listeners. So, Alex, if somebody's interested in learning more about you, finding out more about what you offer in regards to coaching and nutrition and everything that you have going on, where can people find out more about you and reach out to you?
Yeah, so I probably really active on Instagram. I'm on there daily. So Alex_McMahon, MCMAHON_NTP. So N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy, T as in Ted, P as in Peter. And then my website is evolvenutritionaltherapy.com. I have videos, I have blogs. You can sign up for a weekly newsletter, and that is where you'll also find the application for my nutrition coaching on there. And then, those would probably be the best two ways to kind of get in contact with me is hit me up on Instagram, shoot me a message and let me know that you listen to the podcast. One of the things I got to say, dude, is you ask some really, really good questions. So
thank you.
Like it makes it very easy on my side of this all when somebody like you brings great questions. So like I just got to say you brought really awesome questions. So thanks for having me on, man.
Cool. No, I appreciate that. That means a lot to me, Alex. And it's awesome when somebody's been on other podcasts and I only have to ask one question. It's like 15 minutes. I'm like, all right, man, this is good. So
I'm a chatty cat.
Right back at you, man. It's good. Great conversation, and we definitely covered a lot, and I really appreciate that. So, listeners, thank you again for tuning in to the 127 Fit podcast, hanging out with myself and Alex today. Your time is I know very valuable to you, and I'm always grateful and thankful for you guys listening and hanging out with myself and my guests with the podcast. So if you guys want to reach me, you can contact me through Instagram at 127fitness, Facebook at Quentin Vars. If you are interested in reading some of my writings, you can check out my blog site, which is 127fitness.com. And if you guys could please do me a huge favor, like, subscribe, share, and then most importantly, especially within the iTunes podcast app, leave a 5-star review. That would be super, super cool. And if you think you would be a great guest, or if you have maybe a friend or somebody that you think might be an awesome guest or guest on the 127 Fit podcast, please send me an email, and that email is 127fit@gmail.com. If you have any suggestions for myself, any maybe questions you would like me to start asking, or anything that I could do better to improve this podcast, you can also, again, email me. And once again, that's 127fit@gmail.com. Any feedback, positive, negative, or indifferent, is definitely welcome. I want to just grow this and provide a better podcast to the best of my ability. And per usual, listeners, I will leave you with Proverbs 24:10, which states, "If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small." This time, until next time, I will catch you guys later.